Hello there, children. Today we are going to be working on solving linear equations. This educational experience is brought to you by the Excellency of Equations, me. So let us get started. Our first order of business here. Solve the following two equations. Now, remember, in solving an equation, what I need to end up doing is I need to isolate the variable. The variable wants to be all by itself. So how do I do that? I use order of operations in reverse to do that. So I look in this top equation. X wants to be alone. That means I need to add or subtract any numbers behind it or in front of it, in this case this, and then get rid of that coefficient. So my first step here is to subtract 18. Now I do that to both sides of the problem. Remember, what I do to one side, I must do to the other side. For sharing is caring. Thank you very much, imaginary voice in my head. So I get 2x equals -1. And then I go, alright, I have 2 times x. How do I undo that multiplication there? Well, I undo multiplication with division. So I go ahead and divide both sides by 2. Now, the question is probably popping in some of your heads. Do you want the fraction or decimal answer? Oh, mathematically, either are fine. I would go fractions simply because I know that it terminates and it's a nice whole number. What does that mean? It means if you have a 1/3 here, technically it's not 0.3. Like this is 0.5, obviously. But if this were a 3 down here, and you put 0.33, that's not technically accurate. It's 0.33 repeating. So, unless you're getting some word problems we will get into later on in algebra, you definitely want to keep it as a fraction. Fractions are our friend, not food. So, the second problem, how do I solve that? Well, I'm simply going to add 3 to both sides. It said -3 first, I'm going to add 3. Now, again, it's order of operations in reverse. So then I get 12n equal to 26. Now, how do I deal with that 12? Well, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 12. That is very important for all of us. Now, here's the thing. I get n equal 26 over 12. Well, what do I do with this in this instance? I can't leave it like that. Why not? It's not simplified. See how the top and bottom are even numbers? You actually want to reduce that down to 13 over 6. Yes, it is incorrect if you don't do that. So you definitely want to make sure you take care of that. Okay, moving on. Alright, let's go ahead and solve this one. Alright, 12n minus 3 equals 4n plus, whoa, plus 21, whoa, 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 whoa. Variables on both sides. Say, what? Well, remember, this is okay. You've got some choices here. So I have my equation. I have my 12n minus 3, n equals 4n plus 21. I don't care, and it really doesn't matter, what side you bring the variable to in this case. You just have to make that decision. So it doesn't matter if you bring it to the left, or to the right. You can switch them if you want to, in terms of what side you bring it to each problem, but I'm going to bring them to the left this time. Why? Well, because I can. Again, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Bring the variable to the right. What that means is I'm going to bring all my n's to the left side of the problem. Alright. So we get 8n minus 3 equals 21. Now, I go ahead and isolate it just like I did the last problems, which means I'm going to be adding 3 to both sides. And then after I add 3 to both sides, I'm going to be dividing both sides by 8. And I get n to be 3 in this case. Now, how could you check this answer? Well, luckily, I have something I know is absolutely 100% stone cold correct. The problem. Which means, if I put 3 back in for n here, I should get the correct answer. It means 12 times 3 is 36, minus 3, 33. Put in a 3 here, 4 times 3, 12, 12 plus 21. Alright, that works. Whenever you do this, you should be able to put what you get back into the problem and solve. Next up, okay, fractions are our friend. Now, how am I going to deal with fractions here? Well, first off, I'm going to still isolate this x by subtracting 8 from both sides. I still want to do that. Now, when I go ahead and do that, I get 2/3 x equals a -1. Two ways you can solve this. Option 1. You go, alright, I don't want to deal with this right now, so I'm going to take it in 2 steps by multiplying both sides by 3. Multiplication symbol there. And then dividing both sides by 2. Now, I know what some of you are probably screaming into your monitors. Mr. Faust, that's the long way to do that. And you're correct, it is. The other, more expedited option, I might add, is simply go, listen, I've got 2/3 x equals -1. I could divide both sides by 2/3. I'm allowed to do that. The problem is, I don't want to divide something by a fraction. So instead of multiplying by a fraction, I am going to multiply by this fraction's reciprocal of 3/2. I'm allowed to do that, and that's going to give me the ability to solve this. Much rejoicing. I get x equals -3/2 because these things cancel each other out. Alright, so far, so good. Let's continue. Alright, we have solved this equation here. Now, this problem requires me to do something first. Namely, since sharing is caring, thank you imaginary voice, I'm going to distribute the 5 there and distribute the -4 to both those problems. Why? Because I can't really do anything with those yet. I know you're trying to think, can't I just divide both sides by 4? The problem is, you have to divide that by 4, which gets me a fraction. I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to just multiply the 5 and the -4 there. 5x minus 10 equals -8x minus 28 plus x. Let's clean this side up a little bit. -7x minus 28. 5x minus 10. Alright, well, this is exactly like the last problem we did, where it was pick a side for the x's to go on. Now, since I brought them to the left side last time, I'm going to bring them to the right side this time. Does it matter? Absolutely not. I just want to show you that it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. -10 equals -12x minus 28. Now, what do I do from here? Well, let's think about this. I need to get the x's by themselves. So how do I do that? Ponder, ponder, ponder. I'm going to add 28 to both sides, which is probably the smartest play I've got going on there. Getting me 18 equals -12x. And then I divide both sides by -12. Okay, now, when I do this, I get x equal to -18/12. Now, why do I move the negative sign up? Remember, the negative sign can go on bottom, top, or out front. I like keeping it up top. If you put it out front, you're more likely to eat it with your division bar. And I'm done. Wait, no, no, no. That's right. I can't be done yet. Because of the fact that this can be simplified, I need to simplify it. And that's going to give me -3/2. Done deal. Alright. Moving on to the next problem. So, more fractions? Sure, why not? So I've got this. Ooh, fractions everywhere. This poses a bit of a problem. So, I need to think about this for a second. Think. Ponder. Well, what you've got to realize is this. In order to do this problem, I would need to get common denominators and to work with this. Rather than do that, what I'm going to end up doing is taking the entire thing and thinking to myself, if I had a common denominator, what would that common denominator be? If I wanted to add 1/2 and 1/3 and 1/4 and 1/6 together, what would that common denominator actually look like? Let me think about that for a second. What would that common denominator look like? Well, that'd be 12. They all could get to 12 as a common denominator. So what I'm going to do, because sharing is in fact caring, I am going to multiply every numerator, just the numerators only, by 12. Why am I doing that? My whole goal is to eliminate the fractions here. If I multiply this correctly, all the fractions will be gone. Now I know what you're thinking. Is that even legal, what you're doing? Yes, because every single term in green gets multiplied by 12, we're fine. It's like if I were giving out $1 to everybody in class. If I gave the dollar to everyone, that's fair. If I'm like, Timmy, you get $1, Susie, you get $1, but Sven, no dollar for you. You'd be like, that's not fair, it's for Sven. Sven's a nice guy. Can't really have that. So, what I've got to do then is simplify 12 over 2. What's that become? 6. 6x. 1/3 times 12, that's a 4. 1/4 times 12, that's a 3. Don't forget the x sitting there. 1/6 times 12, that's a -2. And lo and behold, this becomes a problem exactly like the last couple we've done, where it's just variables on both sides. So I took something not nice, did one little trick, and brought it back to something that I can deal with. That's all this mathematics really is, folks, that I solve for x here, is taking this new layer and peeling it back like an onion to something we know how to deal with. Ogres have layers, so do these math problems. Now 6x minus 3x, well, that's just 3x, folks. So we've got that to look forward to. Now I need to figure out how to solve this thing. So 3x here in this case plus 4 equals -2. I am going to subtract 4 from both sides. And then let that soak in. How do I solve? Divide both sides by 3. And I get x equal to -2. Now what you could then do is you could then put -2 back into this problem for x and solve. And you would get the correct answer on both sides. Let's move on. Now, sometimes what they'll give you is this. Whoa. Alright, here's a rectangle. I told you one side's 14 inches. I want to know the dimension of the other side of the problem. But I only give you an equation this time. But I'm going to tell you the area. Well, now I got to think. I have to write my own equation? That seems a bit bogus, but we can do it. What's the area of a rectangle? Well, it's length times width. Alright, that would just be 14 times 10x minus 24 equals area. If only they actually told me what the area was. Oh wait, it's 504. Awesome. Now, you've got some options here. Since in this case, the one side right here has a 14 out in front of it, you could divide both sides by 14. I'll show you both ways here. So the first way is dividing both sides by 14 at first. You get 10x minus 24 equals 36. You then add the 24 get x equal to 6. That's by adding 24, folks, and dividing by 6. The other way to do this problem is to simply distribute the 14 in there and then solve. You take this right here, add 336 to it, it's 840, and divide 840 by 140, you get x equal to 6. Now, this is where, folks, you have to read the directions. Why, you may ask? Well, if I said solve for x, and you found x to be 6, you're good. But if I said tell me the dimensions, you actually have to put 6 back into the problem and tell me what that is. You're not just going to be able to solve for x. And I'll warn you, if it's multiple choice, that would be one of the answers. So you take 60, subtract 24 from it, and get 36. So the dimensions are 36 and 14. Now, how could you tell? Take 36 times 14 and get 504 for your area, which they told you what the area was. You are now able to go henceforth and do commence.